Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's video and audio guest is a single mom to three amazing girls, ages 4, 8, and 10. She is also a licensed AGACNP-BC, which she just broke down for me. Adult gerontologist, acute care nurse practitioner that is board certified.
Perfect.
Got it. That was
it.
from memory.
You see?
So she has a focus and a passion for functional medicine, and bodybuilding gave her something unique and personal to her and really represents her love for human-centric art forms. And it became a purpose that could drive her beyond always serving others, her family, and her profession. She was an athlete all her life, and she did ballet for 21 years. And ran cross country and was a sprinter in high school. She started competing in 2021 and did 2 shows before she won her IFBB pro card in 2 classes at the 2021 North Americans. And then she went on to earn 2nd place at the Masters Olympia in 2023, of course, after a few shows in between, which we'll be talking about. And she coaches athletes with her business team, Alpha Aesthetics, alongside Ashlyn Little and Jodie Unger, both of whom have been on this show as well. And aside from coaching, she also offers posing coaching and in-person training. Welcome to the show, JANINE HERRERA. How are you doing?
I am great, Celeste. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Now, I have the trifecta now. I've got Ashlyn, Jodie, and now you.
I know. You've had all of us now.
Yes,
Nice.
so awesome.
Save the best for last. Just kidding.
That is hilarious. They're like, hey, wait a minute.
Wait a second.
Yeah, that was so long ago that I interviewed both of them too. So it's really cool to see it really represents that community within the sport. I think sometimes people who are new to the sport maybe have a outward perspective that it's like catty or competitive in a negative way, but it's really like there's so much community in it.
It is. It's funny because I remember when I got into the sport at my first show, I was afraid of it being catty, right? I don't know. I tend to think you get a group of women together, it's going to be a cat fight.
Yeah.
And my experience in this sport has been the complete opposite. I've been fortunate in that I've always met women who are supportive, uplifting, encouraging, empowering, whether that was like my former team that I was on, the people not on my team. I've just been blessed in that avenue of always coming across people in this sport, even guys.
Yes.
It's like a big family,
It really is. And it's such a small, like niche community while also being big. It's so weird. But yeah, it really does feel like a family. And I want to talk to you about all this. But before we even jump into that, I always ask if there's anything you do or think about right before your heel hits the stage.
Right before my heel hits the stage, I always pray. I always say a prayer. And then I whisper to myself, all right, JANINE, let's go out there and knock it out. Like, that's just like my little pep phrase to myself.
That's amazing. Is it always the same prayer or does it depend on the day?
It's kind of always the same prayer. Before I step out, I always ask God to guide me so that I am a good example to my daughters, so that, my passion shines through while I'm on the stage. And that if there's anybody that is meant to be touched by my presence on that stage that day, just allow it to be and let the judges receive me as your will. Like just you know what I mean? And that's it. And then I just say, all right, JANINE, let's go kill it. And then I walk out.
Amazing.
Completely different persona when I walk out.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes like on stage, you have to embody a different energy in order to really demonstrate your hard work.
Backstage, I'm a goofball. On stage, I am this put together, well-poised person. And I'm just like, if they only saw me backstage 2 seconds before,
That
two
is so
seconds
awesome.
before.
I absolutely love that. I think it's special that you're able to enjoy yourself backstage, but also get on stage and kind of put on that other persona. Do you ever feel like you get to showcase your goofy side or like bring that personality?
You know what? It gets captured if like Gilco is doing a video backstage or somebody's snapping pictures backstage. I always try to like, like do the like,
Yeah.
but sometimes I've been caught, mid like shimmy or some goofy thing that I'm doing, and I'm like, yeah, that's totally me. That's my
Aw,
personality.
that's so
But that's the only
awesome.
time it really gets caught. And well, of course, I have girls who come up to me and they're like, "Oh my God, I've been wanting to meet you. You are hilarious." And I'm like, I don't know why people think I'm this like serious all the time person. Like, I am such a goofball.
That is so awesome. I think that's amazing. It's great when
That
you
and I'm shorter than everybody thinks.
I feel like so many competitors are though, because on stage, someone can look so tall and
Yeah.
then you meet them and you're like, you are 5 feet.
I know. It's so funny. I had always wanted to meet Jessica Wilson, right?
Yes,
I
she's
get to
tiny.
Romania and we're in the gym and I walk into the gym and I see her and I'm like, Jess, Jess, fit that Jess? And she goes, "You are so short."
That is
That was
awesome.
like the first thing that came out of her mouth. And I'm like, "You are too." She goes, "I know I'm short, but I didn't think you were short."
Yeah, Jess is small. She's a
She's
little shorty.
small. So it was funny because we're like about the same height, you know?
Oh.
And it was it was hilarious. I was like, "Why did you think I'm tall?" She's like, "You just look tall on stage." I'm like camera.
I know. Well, I kind of wish that there would be a section for each athlete that showcases, especially in the pro division, because obviously when you're competing as an amateur and you're split up in height classes, you
Right.
have an idea of their range of height. But I wish for pros they'd be like, this person is this height. And like if there was a catalog of all the athletes in the IFBB Pro League, I actually think that would be really cool.
That would be cool. That's a cool idea. That's a
Yeah.
really cool idea. I like
Thanks.
that.
Now that I've said it on the podcast, someone else can take
Someone else is about to capitalize on it.
it. Have fun with that one, guys.
You'll be buying it next.
There you go. See, I
They'll
said
give you a discount. Don't worry.
that's it. Yeah, I just think that would be great because to be able to reference that as an athlete too is nice to see
Yeah.
that. And then when you meet people in person, there's some athletes who are so tall as
Yeah.
well. And it's just amazing to see people in person. That's why I think going to shows as well as like participating in seminars and events can be really game changing for girls because they'll see, oh, like here, I'm trying to put on all this mass, and then I'm standing next to this woman who's really just quite dense, not so much like big, you know?
Yep. Yep. That's so true. Very good point. You know, sometimes you see people in pictures or online, and then you meet them in person, and you're like, they're not as big as I thought. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm not
Yeah,
that far off from that person. Like, it's perspective, perspective. Really.
exactly. Yeah. So I want to talk about your journey because you have won first place in 8 Masters Pro shows. And then you
I didn't
earned
even realize
second.
there was that many.
Yeah, I did the math, girl. I was on NBC News. I was like, 1, 2, geez,
Oh,
awesome. And you earned second place at the 2023 Masters Olympia, which was with Jess.
yes.
So that's really cute. And what was that like for you to go from winning your pro card in 2021 to all of those amazing pro show wins and then placing second in the world?
Um, it's been, and I've said this, it's been a whirlwind since I've been in this sport, right? Um, I started off, everybody knows my journey pretty much right after my divorce. There was COVID and bodybuilding just happened upon me, right? It became a way to manage everything, the emotions of COVID, the emotions of watching people pass away, the emotions of working during that time, the emotions of my divorce, right? Being newly divorced. So it became a way to like heal and move forward. And so everything kind of happened really fast because I went from doing one show just for the heck of it, um, completely won all four categories in that show, became nationally qualified my first show. And the head judge, Tim Gardner, was kind of like, well, what are your plans? And I was kind of like, this was for giggles. And he's like, well, that's a shame, you know? So I kept with it. Second show, then I got my pro cards. And I'll be honest, even after getting my pro cards, I never stopped to consume it. The minute the moment when I actually consumed my journey up to that point was at my pro debut. And
Oh.
I'll tell you why. I was at my pro debut and I was so giddy to meet so many people. Casey Long was there. I met Alicia Fashin was there. So many, and I kept going, oh my God, she's a pro. Oh my God, she's a pro. Oh my God, she's a pro. And I was running around backstage trying to get as many pictures with pros as possible. And my former coach's spouse said to me, he tapped me and said, hey, you're here for your pro debut. So you're a pro too. And it didn't even really hit me until then. And then I went home with my kids who just, that was the first time they'd seen me on stage.
Wow.
They were just, my mom's a superhero.
Oh, that's so
And
amazing.
it like sunk in. But I'll tell you, a lot of times when I'm doing these shows, I go through it without stopping to really process it,
Yeah.
you know? So even when you just said 8 Masters wins, I'm like, holy moly, have I really done that many, you know?
Not only that many shows, that many wins.
Yeah,
Like some women don't even step on stage once, but you're out here winning pro shows.
I know, I'm blessed. I feel so blessed. And Romania was just the highlight, you
Yeah.
know? Just it was a series of covenants with God, right? A series of if I get picked, if I could even just, and then I was, and then it was like, okay, if I can afford to go, if I can make it there. And then I did. And then it was like, it was just always wanting to just showcase and be an example for other women that, gosh, this is possible. You know, I'm
Mm.
not telling you it's easy. I'm not telling you it's easy at all. Like put that out of your mind. But I am telling you it's possible. And I'm telling you that if this is your passion, it's so worth it. You know, it's so worth it. So,
So true. Oh man, the amount of things that I have been able to overcome or get through in life because I had a passion for it it's I can't really put it into words because I think the main thing that drove me was feeling that God placed a purpose on my heart. And so then having that passion to pursue and honor that. Like someone asked me the other day, like, why do you even do all this and work so hard and want more clients and all this? And I'm like, because it's a responsibility to the purpose I was given by God, and I feel called to do that. And I think you putting it into those great words, like a series of covenants. So it's like you consistently trusting in Him to support you in fulfilling those roles you were called to participate in.
it's funny because I have always known that my purpose is to serve others, if that makes sense. I remember being in my early 20s trying to figure out what I wanted to be in life. And I used to work at a hotel, and I was for a while one of the front desk assistant managers, and I loved it, right? Big 5-star hotel. And then you graduate and you figure I must do what my degree is in.
Mm-hmm.
I moved into private wealth management, business, trading, and I was making quite a lot of money at that age, but I was so miserable. I
Mm.
was so miserable. And it started making me realize I am my best self when I'm in service to someone else, right? And I have a naturally nurturing side. I enjoy taking care of people. I enjoy helping people heal, being there, being and holding space for people. So of course, going into healthcare was quite easy for me. I can say that I breezed through school, right?
Yeah.
Because I just loved it. And once I got into bodybuilding, once I met the community of women, and I'm naturally a loving person. Like I
Mhm.
tell people, get ready for hugs. I'm a hugger. Meet me. I am a hugger. Just I fell into this community that was just home. We
Mhm.
uplift each other, we enlighten each other. I don't care if you're not on my team, if you are on my team. I don't care if we're stepping on stage next to each other. I'm usually that girl backstage, like, let's go kill it, guys. This is our moment. Like leave it all out there. You did the work, forget the nerves. Let's all go kill it.
Mhm.
Um, that's just me. And it really every day that I wake up, I thank God that I'm living in my purpose. I feel like I'm living in my purpose. I
Yeah.
get to help people with their health. I get to help women feel empowered and encouraged, and supported. I love it. I love it. And so then it doesn't feel like work, right?
Exactly. It
Exactly.
really doesn't feel like
That's
work
the
when you
thing. It
love it.
doesn't feel like work. Yeah.
And you said too, like school was a breeze for you because you enjoyed it and you were excited about it. And that's something that I've found personally too. Like I perform really well when it's the things that I'm excited about and passionate about. And I can perform great outside of that too, but I don't usually choose to perform in those areas. I just want to perform in what I really enjoy. And throughout your own season, you actually had made it your mission to go all in with competing. And that's a really cool story you mentioned earlier too about Tim Gardner saying that's a shame. And you were like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. And you did. And your dreams came true while you were balancing a master's degree and becoming a coach, as well as taking care of your kids. So, what did you do to manage your time? Because, yes, it's easy, you're passionate about it, that makes it enjoyable. But there's also that element of this is a lot to juggle and I need to manage this, I'm sure. So, how did you navigate the snags in your day-to-day schedules? Because I'm sure they came up too, especially with kids and just, yeah, time management altogether.
So it's a lot of time management. I tell people that all the time, right? People are like, how do you find the time to work out? I do it when my kids are at school. So I block out my time in my schedule. So it's funny because somebody might say, "Oh, can we do that?" Nope, that time's already taken. I don't need to say what it's taken for, but I know it's
Right.
taken for me, right? So it's a series of like time management and honestly having people that I can count on, which is actually what made my relationship with my two partners, Jodie and Ashlyn, so extremely close, right? We all have friends, and some you can count on more than others. I can count on these two girls sometimes more than I can count on family,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's when those snags come up of having somebody to call up and say, "Oh my God, X and Y and Z happen," and Jody's like, "No worries, I got the girls. Go take care of what
Wow.
you need to. They'll be at my apartment." Like it's just having that ability to have somebody else hold space for you, which is so important. And it doesn't have to be a tribe. I would love if it was a tribe. But just having the two of them be able to be there for me and pick up the slack if something happens, right?
Mhm.
There are times, of course, detour off the road, maybe neither of them is available, then I gotta go get things done myself, whether I have to leave work early or I have to leave what I'm doing, but you adjust. There's times that my workout's been cut short because, oh, your youngest is at school and she's throwing up. Okay. You know what I mean? But you adjust. When I get home and I get in my apartment, I have kettlebells, I have dumbbells. So it's on me to still get in the workout that I need to get in, you know? And with regards to studying, when I was studying, what I would do is it's a strict bedtime of 8 o'clock. Well, except for my youngest, but it's a strict bedtime of 8 o'clock. And they know that after 8, they're in bed, hopefully falling asleep, although my two oldest chatter to each other all the time. And I'm gonna go study, right? I'm at the kitchen table studying until 11, 12 o'clock at night. Were there parts of my life that suffered? Sure. I didn't have much of a social life. I
Right.
I didn't have, a partner. I wasn't dating.
Yeah.
But those are the sacrifices I was willing to make. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Now I'm done with school, and then there's a little bit more free space and time. You know what I mean? So I don't stress over things. Like, I'm not that person that, oh, I have to go out, I have to do this, I have to. It'll come when it's supposed to, you know. So
That's very insightful, just that point right there, being able to detach and know that it's taken care of or it will be, but also having the discipline to do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Like, I am going to study from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. and then I'm up in the morning getting them.
on her feet, Mom,
Yeah.
I'll go with you. Oh, I can't. I'll go
Oh,
right now.
so
You know,
sweet.
those are
Yeah.
the hardest. That's the
Uh,
hardest part.
I bet like having them want to spend that extra quality time with you and having to say no during school, that must have been tough.
And then I did certain things from the onset of this. I always said I did not want to do this if it was going to take away from their life, right?
Hmm.
Or hinder them in any way. So they're into basketball and they're into gymnastics and they're into all these different things. So I only did shows on weekends when I did not have them. I deviated from that once for Tampa Pro last year, and I will never do it again.
Oh, okay.
I took them with me to Tampa Pro, and I think just the dynamic, I've never had them at a show with me. I'm so used to fussing all over them. They are used to mom fussing all over them. So to see me in a different headspace was
Yeah.
just my youngest wasn't dealing with it well. She was just mommy time, and it was like mommy has to go check in, mommy has to do this, mommy. And it was so my stress level was like here because I was trying to do
Yeah.
too many things that weekend. And I was like, okay, this, I've never done it. Now I've done it. I know how it works out. Won't do it again. Not at least not until they're older and
That's
they
fair.
don't need so much of me.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah.
makes sense. Well, it's great that you were able to try it and see, even though it didn't go as smoothly as would have been desired. And I think too, though, like this is a great example of like stress will come up in your journey. Things will come up in your journey and or on show day or that you didn't prepare or expect or see coming. And if you're not able to or willing to adapt to it or learn from it, you can find yourself repeating patterns or going against your own word over and over again. And I notice a lot of people will get stuck on the problems that they face within their life, and it keeps them from committing to competing in general. Not even just already being a competitor, but actually committing to compete. So, how do you face those problems and stay solutions focused and stay in that zone of, I'm not going to stress about this?
You know what? I think it comes from way earlier on in life. I read this book, and I'm sure a lot of viewers would have heard about it, called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And that's kind of stayed with me
Hmm.
throughout time, right? So when something comes up, that, and I think honestly my faith, right? Because I've been through quite a bit moving to this country at a young age. I mean, I've always just said, yes, I could stress about it, and especially now that I'm older, yes, I could stress about it, but is stressing going to solve it? No, it's just going to waste more time on the problem. So let's skip past what's stressing me, and let's talk about how can I resolve this? How can I work with it? How can I just go with the flow? You know what I mean? Yes, there are times that you want to get bogged down with stress, but I'm very good at grounding. So there are days when I might wake up, and I've even said it sometimes. I'm like, I feel like something's going to happen today. Something's off with me today.
Mm.
And I will try my best. And I'm that crazy person that if I can't make it to the beach to put my foot in the sand, I am that person taking off my socks somewhere random to get my foot in the grass and just kind of ground myself, ground
Yeah.
my energy. And a lot of times I will time things, meaning if there's something that's stressing me and I've noticed my mind keeps going back to it, going back to it, going back to it, I'll say, all right, Janine, enough is enough. You either give this to God and let it go, or you decide this is the one time that you can overrule God and you're going to solve it
Good
and hold
luck.
on to it. And that usually just kind of wakes me up, right?
Yeah.
Like, who do I think I am? And then I just kind of like let it go. But stress has come up. It's funny because I have a client just this week, we were talking about her past. And she said to me, I just can't seem to let it go. And I said to her, you know what you want to do in the future, right? You are on this path of who you want to become. And she said, yes. I said, so then I want you to think of it like a thief.
Mm.
Every minute that you think of the past and what happened, that thief has stolen 5 minutes of your future.
Mm.
And for every 5 minutes that you think of your past, that thief has now stolen 10 minutes of your future. How much are you going to continue to let that thief steal? Because eventually you're shortening your own future. And that kind of hit her. And she's like, yeah. So came up with a process, journal, get it out,
Yeah.
right? Journal and get it out. And after you've journaled and get it out, you don't get to think about that continuously. You've already gotten it out. So now let's move forward towards the plan of the future.
Yes. I
Kind of how
like
I
that.
do things. And I
It's
have a
like you
lot of journals.
personify it into something that now is outside. Because a lot of times we get stuck in that because we're taking it and we're putting it in ourselves. It doesn't feel tangible. So by journaling, it becomes tangible. By identifying it and giving it a name, it becomes tangible. It takes on its own identity versus embodying some part of your own.
Yep. Yeah. Journaling is it's so cathartic.
Yeah.
Such a good way to sort through yourself, to get in touch with your emotions, to express things and get it out.
Mhm.
There's times that my kids don't know how to express something, and I'll tell them, write me a letter.
Yeah.
Write mommy a letter, right? Because they know how they feel, but sometimes it's easier for some people to sit and write it out.
Definitely. That was actually a big thing in a lot of the children that I would counsel through the counseling center I was working at. It was like they communicated often with their parents through writing, especially when they felt that they couldn't vocalize those concerns. And over time, it ended up leading them to be better able to have those conversations because that processing time in between is also longer. They've written it, they've given it to you, they don't know necessarily when you're going to process it and maybe write back or talk to them
Right.
about it or whatever their letter is requesting. And there's that extra time. So I think it is a great practice also for like learning to self-regulate in some ways because
Yeah.
you're having to like, okay, and it's not I'm going to take care of it myself and be the parent. It's I'm self-regulating in that I'm coping with it, I'm writing about it, I'm seeking help. Actually, I'm glad I just said the word seeking help because I needed to ask you this and I like totally forgot earlier when you were talking about something and that was calling upon people to support you in your journey. And I was like, I need to ask her how she got comfortable with that because I think there's so many moms who do not feel comfortable asking for help. And not even just moms, women in general, men also, men definitely,
Oh,
actually,
men
I'd say.
definitely.
Men, they're like, what's help? It's just, I'm on it on my own. So how did you get to a place or how do you recommend somebody get to a place where they're not just able to ask for help, but they're able to receive it as well?
So I think when I was a first-time mom, I had this um disillusionment that I was going to do it all on my own,
Mm.
right? And I was expected to do it all on my own. You have one kid, people say you just have one. I hate to hear other parents berate somebody else. Say, oh, but you just have one. 1, 3, 7, it's all challenging, right?
Mm.
It's all challenging. So when I first had when I had my first daughter, I remember not wanting to ask for help because I felt like there was a shame,
Yeah.
right? In a guilt of asking for help. I only have this one child and I can't manage her. I'm not gonna. But I slowly started like just being in myself, just breaking down because I would have these moments of just sadness And it's because I'm overwhelmed, but I don't want to tell anybody. You know what I mean? And it was throughout that, and I think with my ex-husband at that time, going through that and just speaking up one day and saying, I know I don't work and I am at home and I should not complain, but there are days that I'm tired,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And it took a while for him to grasp that, right? It took a while. It took me leaving him home with the baby.
To realize how exhausting it is.
Sitting at the grocery store doing nothing, sitting in the parking lot, missing her.
Yeah, of
But
course.
but knowing that I needed to stay out of the house so that he would understand, right? What it took, what it entailed to be with a baby hours upon hours. And then eventually, by the time my second daughter came, it was just a matter of telling my mom, hey, if you can come visit for a little bit, because, I need help. And I think also being a nurse helped, because when you are a nurse and you're an ICU nurse at least, you are working with those people, your colleagues, helping save lives. And these people are literally teeter-tottering on the brink of life.
Mm.
You don't have time to have a God complex. You don't have time to have an ego. When your patient starts crashing, you need to hit that code button and all hands are on deck. You can't be afraid to ask for help, right? So I
Mhm.
really think being also in that career field and having to do that day in, day out also kind of aided me being able to now be like, hey, I can't manage this on my own, or I don't know this. You know what I mean? One of the things that I love, especially about Ashlyn, she's my coach, but she's also my best friend, and she's always open to questions. And we have a really great dialogue, because I'll tell her, I noticed XYZ, but I wouldn't have done that. And she'll say, well, there's many different ways. You could do XYZ, you can do ABC. This is why I would have chosen this. And then she'll say, well, why did you chose that? And I'll, you know what I mean? We
Yeah.
have that. It's not just best friends send each other memes and laugh off at nothing. We do that too, by the way.
Yes.
But, I have these two partners in my life now who are best friends, that we have great dialogue and we talk about a diaspora of things, right? We can talk about so many things. So being in that profession really helped me step out of me, 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 me. When you work in ICU, there's no I in team. Yes, there's an M and an E. I know that. But there's no I in team. You got to get with everybody to save that patient. So that translated over into life, just like bodybuilding translated over into my career, right?
Yes. Wow. Well, that's really powerful. I like how you drew upon your career experiences to relate that to how you've been able to see that some things you can't necessarily get away from and get through on your own. And that's actually a really beautiful thing. And you shared earlier that you've really had to learn to, over the years, lean onto your faith
Yes.
because that testing you've said in a post before is really an opportunity for growth. So, can you share some of the things you've had to face or overcome or even change in your life to reach new levels?
Um, I mean, I'm still doing that, right? I think like I'm still growing past things. Um, I'm still learning about myself. I think one of the things that I did a lot, um, right after my divorce in working out was just being very introspective.
Mm.
Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? Right? Continuously asking myself that question and living up to the answer that I would provide. Always being introspective and being humble enough to know that I don't know everything. And I am not perfect.
Yeah.
I always tell people perfection is an illusion, right? So
Yeah.
one of the ways that I keep myself grounded is I ask a lot of questions to myself. Is this serving the greater purpose? Now, I have a personality where I'm all in or nothing.
Mm.
Now I'm trying to change that. Because like I said, I don't slow down and enjoy things, right? If
Right.
if we are doing something, I need to know what's the end goal,
Mm-hmm.
whether I engage in it or not, right? So a lot of times it's like people are like, just do it for the heck of it. No, no, it's a waste of time. You know, I am at that point now, I can say this year where I am looking to enjoy things. I'm enjoying my off season. I'm not just so focused throughout my entire off season of getting back on stage, which is what my off season used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying friendships and going out and meeting people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's just continuous self-regulation. Remember you brought that word
Mhm.
up?
Yeah.
It's continuous self-regulation. It's exhausting at times, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But it has kind of kept me in check. And I've noticed, part of bodybuilding was wanting to build a better physique. And I've also put
Mhm.
alongside that wanting to just be the best version of me. And so it's like, could I skip out on asking myself the questions? Yeah, I could, you know. Every now and then you want to take the petty route of something,
Yeah.
anything. And
Yeah.
you just like, it's not worth it.
No, it's not. Gosh, I feel like there's so many things that we're told, like, handle it this way to get this result. Do it like this, and this will happen. But if you don't follow your heart and what you're called to do and how you're called to represent yourself and God, I think you can stray into like very um worldly things that end up draining you, or ways of communicating that drain you, or ways of being that drain you. And that all or nothing is pretty much towing the expectation of perfection without saying it.
Yeah,
It's
it
like,
is.
yeah. And so, and perfection, I think, as you said, it's an illusion. And I think because it's an illusion, it's the easiest form of self-sabotage. The amount of clients I have who are like, oh, I wasn't perfect, so it's like, and what universe does perfection exist right now? And it doesn't. So if we say I need to be perfect in order to blank, 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 we're actually just immediately setting an unrealistic standard and expectation for ourselves. So you said you're working right now on letting go of that, embracing more of what is. And I know you said you're not focused on your next show or your next season. It's just here I am right now. And I want to be present in this season and not focus on the next. So how has that transformed your day-to-day life as opposed to prep mode?
Day to day, I'm still working out. I'm still eating clean. But there's no stress, right? So before it was, you know, this meal, this time, this time, this time, this time. If things get pushed back a little bit, it's okay. Deal with it. Do I wake up sometimes and I stress because I get on Instagram and this person's prepping and that person's prepping and and I'm like, I want to get
Right.
back on stage too. But then
Right.
I realized, slow down, Janine.
Hmm.
You did like 8 or 9 shows last year. Relax. Relax. Enjoy what's around you right now. You know what I mean? It's not that it's not challenging. It is still challenging to step
Hmm.
back and enjoy life. And people are like, how is it challenging to enjoy life? It is. When
This.
you're a very regimented person,
Hmm.
it's hard to step back and say, let me see how this is gonna go. There's hives all over me just thinking that.
Yeah.
But I know that I need to force myself, just like they say you need to become uncomfortable. You need to be comfortable being uncomfortable
Hmm.
when you're going through prep. It's almost the reverse for me. Now that I'm outside of prep and I'm in off season, I need to become comfortable being uncomfortable,
Yep.
that I might miss a workout here and there. It's okay to stay out late and go out with friends. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? I still try and kill myself and wake up the next day and go, but
Hmm.
it's letting go. It's letting go and realizing not everything has to be as regimented, you know? It's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's very hard. I always like there to be a purpose and a goal at the end of everything. If you tell me we're gonna walk down the street, okay, where are we going? What's down there? What are we doing? How much time do you think we're gonna be? And what, like, that's me.
Right. Yeah, I get you.
It's funny because I remember Jodie said to me one day, hey, let's go to the beach tomorrow. And I immediately went for what? And she goes, to go to the beach. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Do you want to go to the sand? Do you want to just go sightseeing? Like, do you want to go to the beach and like go bathe? And she's like, can we just go to South Beach and walk around, Janine? And we're like walking around and I'm taking pictures of her, but the whole time I'm like, okay, but where, like, what things do you want to see? Tell me. So
Yeah.
we have a route, you know what? And she's just like, let's just walk. And I'm walking and I'm trying to let go of like the anxiety inside of me that's like, we're just walking with no aim. I don't know what she wants to see. She would tell me, I would make sure we see that, you know.
Right. Right.
That's
Yeah.
me.
I get that. I can see that. And I think that's a common trait for a lot of people. But going on walks, that's a great way of exposing yourself, I guess aimless walks, I should say,
Oh, we
to
do that now every day, if not every other day.
that's
It's
awesome.
thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I really think that prep and so what I usually say is that extremes are very predictable, and that's why we gravitate towards them. So it's easier to commit to a predictable extreme than it is to commit to a middle ground gray area that you're not yet 100% sure will get you where you want to go, nor are you 100% sure that it's going to be as rewarding as if you went to an extreme. So when you see someone, I think it's more impressive when they can sustain and maintain a really great balanced life in their improvement season and in their prep. But if they can step away from a prep and still have a sense of peace and purpose in their life, I think that speaks volumes. And to get to that place as an athlete, I know it's hard because I've been there too, but now I'm in that position where I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, I want to prep at this time, but it's okay if I don't. And if not, I'll do this. And if that doesn't work, it's fine too, because I think if once you let go of that extreme thinking, that all or nothing thinking, the attachment to outcomes and timelines, you free yourself up to actually find yourself as an athlete and as a human being outside of the sport in a way that is going to make it more sustainable long term. And that is, I think, one of the most important things an athlete can actually do.
I think for me also, what has happened is I have enjoyed not having a plan because most of my life I've had a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always lived by, I know what I'm going to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the first times that it's like, you got the pro cards. You did great at Masters Olympia. You can kind of breathe, Janine. You know, I think it's always, I was always living in balance, but a very strict balance, if that made sense,
Yeah.
right? But now this is the time where I don't necessarily need to have a plan of what's next. And
Right.
at first it was unnerving. I was constantly like, Ash, what's my next show? What's my next show? So when are you thinking we're gonna start prep? Why are you thinking? And she would just completely act like she didn't even hear the question and be
Yep.
like, did we do this already? Did we do like, and I'm like, are you listening to? But then I got it. I got it. She just wants my mind just relax. And now that I'm actually in relaxed mode, I mean, well, I'm like, hey, let's see where the season goes. Who knows,
Right.
I love focusing on my clients, and just taking it day by day, you know?
Yeah. And let's talk about the work that you do because you've expanded in your career and your education and you pursued formal education. So, how do you apply that formal education in the work you do with clients?
So it's funny, I'm an acute care nurse, that's ICU, but somewhere after my first year of my master's program, and of course being in bodybuilding, I started realizing that I have more a passion towards functional health, right? Helping people heal from the inside out, but really with more holistic and not necessarily from like big pharmaceuticals, always going that route, right?
Yeah.
Incorporating diet and exercise and all of that stuff. And it's funny because a lot of my classmates kind of scoff, you know,
Mm,
very more Western medicine thinking, everything you have to have a pill or be on something. And I just stuck with it because the more that I met people in bodybuilding, and I know bodybuilding is a world of extremes, pushing your body to the limit. But I think there's within reason, right? There's a way to do this sport and not have it destroy your liver, not have it destroy your kidneys, not have it wreak havoc on your gut. And that became my driving force of like, okay, how can I be in this sport and help other people do this sport healthy, in a healthy way? And I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's nothing healthy about bodybuilding. Listen, there's nothing healthy about drinking alcohol either, but you can do it in moderation or you can be an alcoholic, right? So there's always extremes. So that's where my focus is more towards now, and that's where I'm moving into. Now that we have the team, we do have a third party wellness company that we work with, but eventually that's where I'm going to be moving into. Like right now, I've finished my nurse practitioner, and that's the more certificates and courses that I'm gearing myself towards, is like gut health, thyroid dysfunction, that sort of thing. Yeah.
That's really great. I like how you were able to take your passion and not let the naysayers shut that down, and also instead find more so where that could take you and establish more of that niche. And I think it's very interesting because you brought up how you're obviously working with Jodie and Ashlyn in this process. You guys have a team. So how do you determine the structure of a client's plan when you're thinking of keeping functional health at the top of mind?
So it's funny. One of the reasons I love having a team with them is that we really collaborate on everything, right? So it might be my client, but I'll call them up and be like, hey, this person's checking in. Can we look at it together? Can we, you know what I mean? When we're formulating their plan, I might formulate the plan, but I might send it to them to look over for certain things, or vice versa. I've had Jodie numerous times call me and say, I have a client, she's dealing with this issue, this issue, this. What do you think I can recommend to her? I am by nature a conservative person. I don't think you always need to go to heavy pharmaceuticals in order to help somebody. I'm that person in the hospital that's like, oh, we're putting them to sleep. Propofol, while everybody is like fentanyl. Of course, it depends on what kind of sedation they need too, but I'm always going the more conservative route. So there are times Jodie will call me up and be like, I have a client, she has thyroid dysfunction, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to change her diet to XYZ. Ask her if she's already taking these supplements. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a way for us to, as a team, look at the whole health of our clients. Whereas before, that wasn't the focus of maybe the team we were on. You know what I mean? We
Hmm.
get to make that now an integral part of this team, so that we're looking at people, not just your diet and nutrition. There are times she's come to me with clients and I'm like, that person needs a break.
Hmm.
You need to think of their mental health right now. And that's something that's so underrated too,
Hmm.
right? Sometimes a client might tell you what's going on with them in the gym or that they're not staying on track, but the mental aspect is negated, isn't there. So there are
Right.
times like we'll talk about a client or something and I'm like, she needs a break. Mentally, that person, needs to step back right now or something. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's important for a coach to be able to recognize some of those signs or needs, and that fine line as a coach between push the athlete and their limits and pull back because this is the top of their threshold, and any further could actually take them 10 steps backwards. So when you're considering that threshold for pushing an athlete, I know you also train people in person, and one of your philosophies is to take them to new limits, or at least that's kind of what I've understood. So, how do you train yourself in the gym to push your own limits? And then how do you approach that when working with others, especially if they are maybe in the depths of prep and feeling some of that fatigue?
so when I'm in the gym, I kind of rely on my trainer, James, Monsters Inc., to push me to my limit, right? Because I can push myself, but let's face it, we all have exercises we prefer to do because they're our favorites, because we're good at them, right? He'll get me doing other things that I need to focus on. And of course, he watches my form and all of that stuff. So, and he knows how much to push me, right? He knows how much I have left in my gas tank. I'm one of those people, I'm a beast when I get in the gym, right? With clients, I don't push them as hard as I would push myself unless I see it there. I think when you're with a client, you have to know how much to push them, because you also don't want to risk injury, right? You don't want to push them past the threshold, or you don't want them ego lifting or anything like that. So it's a matter of, I always tell people, there's nutrition, exercise, effort, intensity. So once you're putting in the effort and we're working together in the gym, I'm going to try and bring out the most I can out of your intensity, but not by sacrificing your form or anything else. Now, of course, when you're with somebody in person, you kind of know when they have a little bit more in the tank left, right? And you can push them to that limit. But it's a mixture. Not every exercise am I going to kill you with drop sets, you know, to the max. So it's a mixture of like mixing up that workout so that they're doing the right form, pushing really good weight, and their intensity is there, you know. It's much easier when you're with somebody in person. I mean,
So true. You can see like I think you can just see their overall body language, the way they're
you can
breathing.
see a muscle when it's failing. You can, I mean, you can see it when they're
Yeah.
about to fall to their knees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then you have 5 more. If that was my trainer, James, that's always what he says to me. Right when I start shaking, you have 5 more, young lady. I'm like, I have no more, but I'll try and squeak out the 5 you need.
Do you think that's really important and maybe a missed factor is really people pushing themselves in the gym?
Oh, absolutely. I do think there is something to be said about when somebody is not seeing results and they're going to the gym every single day. When somebody says to me, I've been working out 2 years and I haven't been able to lose weight. Well, let me take a look at your workout. And then they're like with 5-pound dumbbells.
Right.
And it's like, why are you doing 5 for 20? Just go up in weight.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes for some people, it just doesn't occur to them.
Right.
They're so comfortable lifting that particular weight. Like I had a client who was doing 15 reps of 15 pounds for like every single exercise.
Oh man.
That's just the weight. She just attached herself to that
Right.
weight, felt comfortable,
Yeah.
right? And me actually saying to her, do me a favor. If you're easily able to get to 8 or 10 reps, go up by 5 pounds. It was like mind blown for her. She had never thought it was time to go up in weight. She was like, I think
Right.
I was always just waiting for somebody to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there's a component where people aren't putting the intensity into it that they need to, right? Because the minute you start feeling a little bit heavy, you're like, oh, I can't get to 15. Well, do 10. That's what I tell them. They're like,
Exactly.
I can't do 20 doing this. Not every exercise you have to do 20, do 10. Then they look at you like 10. Then you put more weight on and they're like, I can't get to 10, get to 8. That's fine. Get to 8.
Yeah.
Get to 8. It's like challenging yourself.
Absolutely. So a mental hurdle I had to overcome was I would look at my coach's programming for me, and let's say it said 15 reps. I would be like, I need to pick a weight where I can actually hit 15 reps so I can execute on the plan. This was years ago. And I realize now how much potential was left in the tank. I'm like,
Yes.
if I could go back in time, I would change the way I trained. So, I mean, obviously you learn, you live and
You
learn.
know
And
better, you do better, right?
yeah. So now I'm doing better, but like, yeah, I know there's so much gains left on the table. And
Yeah.
now if I get a program from my coach and it says to hit 15 reps, I will pick the most challenging weight I can for 15 reps. And sometimes I only hit 12 and I just write it down in the spreadsheet and I'm like, I got to 12 for the second set.
Yeah.
Hit 15 on the first, but second I couldn't. And I'm fatigued, but it feels great. There's never been a time where my coach is like, well, I really thought you should go for that 50. It's like, okay, well, if you push, your intensity was there, good, and he'll do form intensity checks and stuff like that. And I think this is where a coaching relationship is very important. So when you talk about like, okay, how are we working as a team? So you and your girls working as a team, but then also you and your client being able to process that feedback together, because it takes a client saying, I'm not really sure if I'm doing what I need to be doing, for you to realize, oh, yeah, well, you're lifting 5 pounds on a movement you could easily be probably pushing 12 and a half pounds on, but you just may be fearful of that. And those are hurdles you get to work through with your clients. And I think it's important we talk about too, and this is kind of shifting gears just a little bit, but there's habits you need to execute outside of training, I think daily or weekly, monthly, etc., that can really make a big impact on you and your success as an athlete or your success in getting in the sport. So do you have any habits aside from journaling and grounding, some of those really great ones you've already shared, and pushing yourself in the gym, that you think many women should consider embodying, whether they compete or not, that you have learned from your own experience or formal education?
I think one of the things, and I'm not going to say that I do this regularly or at all. I do think there's value in participating in something more low impact. Like how we were talking about walking, right? I do
Mhm.
walk quite a bit now with Jodie. One of the things I always encourage my clients to do on their rest day is do something low impact, whether it's Pilates or bar or restorative yoga, right? That's the one that I prefer. Or stretching. I'm horrible at stretching. I know.
Me
I
too.
should stretch every day, but I don't. Right? I think getting in that habit of movement, especially for women, because we're the ones that suffer the most from osteoporosis and stuff,
Right.
and go through, all the hormone changes. So keeping ourselves active will play such a good part. Just keeping yourself active helps your gut, believe
Mm-hmm.
it or not. So it's like keeping ourselves active. Um, if I were to say one more thing as a woman, or all of us should have out there, is like, honestly, that small circle of friends,
Yeah. Yes.
that small
Great.
circle that you can count on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think womanhood is such a beautiful, sacred thing, and I wish that more women embraced it. Um, we bear children. We have experiences that men will never understand or know about. We have things that bond us and is a kinship, right?
Yeah.
So I think that if we were to come together more and just lean on each other more, it's so funny because I had a friend who is competing, and she wrote something on Instagram the other day about people attacking her. And
Mm.
I just reached out and I was like, "You're beautiful. You're such an amazing woman. And I hope you're not taking any of these comments to heart." You know what I mean? Like, I can't even understand why they're trolls to begin with. But
Right.
I said, take heart in this. Know that you're doing something right, because nobody picks on somebody that's not somebody they envy, or not somebody that's
Right.
not doing something that they wish they could be doing. So know that it's coming from a place of jealousy, because nobody picks on you if you're not doing something right or not doing well. Nobody even pays attention to you. You don't exist. So
Yeah. Great
yeah, I
point.
think those two things, if I could encourage women, it's to get out and move, engage in some form of movement, and then just have that circle of your sisters,
Mm-hmm.
the people who you can turn to, who will be real with you. Not yes people, but be real with you.
Sometimes you need a friend to be a little delusional with, but you
I
also,
listen, I have that. Jodie's my little delusional friend. You say something, I'm there. Let's go. She doesn't even know what the plan is.
Exactly.
You know, Ashlyn's like that. Are you crazy?
Hmm.
Let me bring you down a couple notches to earth. You
Yeah.
know, you need that. You need
Yeah,
that. And
you do.
so, I mean, those would be the two things. I don't know that I have more to.
Oh, those are great. Those are major. I absolutely love that too, because I don't know that others have necessarily recommended that as a habit or a tip to keep a close circle. And I think that's a great one. We're communal beings, and especially as women, we really thrive when we have that sisterhood and when we can relate to one another. And also from a health perspective, as you said, women will face certain health challenges, and man, it gets my head going in a million directions. But something that I've learned through a lot of the work I do with competitors on disordered eating and body image, and then the background in counseling and everything, is women are more likely to mimic each other and fall into that, oh, they're doing this, they're being rewarded for it, so I will do that. So be careful who you're surrounding yourself with, because you might end up mimicking them, or thinking or telling yourself a story that that's the rewarded behavior if it is being rewarded. And then on a second note is women face those health challenges, and I can't help but think so much of it is also because from a young age we are taught to manipulate, change, starve, or hurt our body in some way.
Yeah.
And like disordered eating leads to health problems that we now see so many women face. And it's interesting because obviously most of America is obese, let's be for real, and that's that's a huge cause for concern. But let's also consider the fact that 70% at least of women have some sort of disordered eating. And then you add on to that being an elite athlete or in a physique or aesthetic based sport of any sort, and young girls in sports too. Like I can't help but wonder and think about how this this has actually morphed and challenged the way our health has progressed over the years too. And so speaking on movement and then also community, think it's important as a community we're encouraging healthy behaviors and thoughts, and yes, and
Absolutely.
conversations about our body and about food and about how we're pursuing these things, and to have those friends that keep it real with you. Like I see you pushing, like her ignoring you, asking, hey, when's the next prep, when's the next prep, and her being able to be like, you got to let it go. That's
Yeah.
positive. Like that's probably putting you in a better, it's put you, as you identified, in a better mental space for enjoying this season.
Yeah. And I think just I wish there was a little bit more um transparency, right? Because even in
Mhm.
this sport, I feel like there are some women who are very transparent.
Yeah.
Um, I'll be the first to tell you when I'm in prep, my food is there's really no deviations, right?
Right.
I had somebody reach out the other day and say to me, "Where's your fruits and where's your veggies?" I'm like, "They're now in off season." But I'll be honest, in on season, yeah, there isn't a lot of fruits and veggies, right? Because I'm so regimented. Um, is that what I want people to follow? No, I do want you to have a balanced meal. I'm just doing what works for me because I know in other ways that I can balance myself,
Yeah.
right?
I hear that.
Whether it's by me taking supplements or me taking green powders in my water or what have you. Not the best way to get my fruits and veggies in, but I have done that. So I feel like sometimes though people put this whole veil over us. Like all they see is the perfect physique, the perfect form. And sometimes we're not always honest about what goes into that, you know?
Yes.
Um, and I'm trying to be more transparent myself. That's why for this off season, typically I don't really show myself other than workouts and stuff.
Mhm.
I'm showing that, hey, I am going out. Hey, I
Yeah.
might have sushi or beef. Well, that's always in season or off season. But I'm I'm pretty much a take me or leave me kind of gal.
Mhm.
So it's just, like I think the other day I showed everybody I have the hugest zit, like right there. It's still there. That little crater is still there. Um,
I hate that.
but but I think that we just need to not scold, right? It's not a I'm better than you or you're better than me or berate somebody for something. It's
Right.
just teach me. I want to do better. You seem
Yes.
like you're doing better. Teach me, you know? And I
Mhm.
think it'll be so much more better for all of us.
Agreed. And that speaks to your earlier point about how uplifting everybody can be. And if you're willing to be led and you're open to being led, also open to asking questions, and you're around people who are willing to answer them, I think that can inspire a lot more greatness. And I want to talk about you as a master's athlete, because I get so many requests for master's athletes, and I'm like, y'all, I've been interviewing master's athletes since, what are y'all talking about? I've been in this, but
Feel like
okay.
I've been in this from day one.
Yeah, I'm like, it's 2018, we were interviewing master's athletes.
Oh,
I think I
wow.
had Jess on in 2018,
Oh,
actually.
wow. Wow.
But I was like, okay, master's athletes, just, we need to shed even more light. So here's what I need to ask you. You entered into this sport as a master's competitor. What do you hope other women can see or learn from your journey as a master's athlete? And what would you tell a woman who feels like they're too old to start?
First thing I would say is you're never too old. That desire's there. It's been placed there for a reason. You're never too old. Figure out your why. And as long as your why is authentic and honest, you go after it with the full force, because the world will conspire, the universe will conspire and move it within your realm. Right?
Yep.
So that's the first thing. I mean, I've had women come to me and say, I think I'm too old. For what? You know, um, realistic. Let's put some realism in that, right? Am I saying that you're going to be the next Miss Olympia? Probably not. I'll be honest. I don't even think I'm going to be the next Miss Olympia. I'm very honest. But can you enter master's category and do well? Absolutely. Can you still have a career as a master's athlete in this sport? Absolutely. And it's funny because I think more promoters are starting to realize the legacy of this sport, right? We're still trying to fight to get them to take away the fees, but that's another story.
Sure.
But guess what? Nobody stays young forever. So
Right.
all of the young, gorgeous athletes are one day gonna hit that 35. And now you're a master's athlete, unless they completely raise it to 40, which I think it should be 40 anyway. But you
Talk to
know,
us about that opinion, actually.
so I always, it's funny because when I entered masters the first time, it was 40 and up. I
Mhm.
didn't know that 35 existed until I went to nationals. And then there was a 35 and up. And I just think this whole calling women that are 35 advanced maternal fetal age, and come on,
I
at
know.
35, let's stop
I
doing that to
know.
our women in society. Okay, if you tell me at 40 I'm at advanced maternal fetal age, I get it. Although I had my youngest when I was in my 40s, but it's like, come on, I think that's another thing that's happening in society too, right? Women have so much to bear, and now in our mid 30s, which should be our prime, we're advanced maternal fetal age.
Right.
So I honestly think masters should be 40 and up. Let these 30 somethings enjoy the prime of their lives. Let them
Mhm.
at it. And then when you cross 40, you're a master's athlete, right? If you think
Mhm.
about it, in your 20s, you're figuring out who you are. In your 30s, you are solidifying who you are.
Right.
And in your 40s, you should already know who you are and be who you are,
Right.
right? So, I don't get to set the age, but if I were to set the age, and considering that Masters Olympia, to qualify, you needed to be 40, not
Mhm.
35. You needed to be 40,
Hmm.
which is where I think the age limit should be.
Yeah.
Allow the younger women to compete and be young women and not be masters just yet. So,
Yes. As a 27-year-old me, I can say that I agree.
there you go.
Because I'm like, dang, like I could see myself doing this forever, but I also want to have kids, get married, have kids, have a family, and then what? I come back and now I'm
And you're a
supposed to,
master's.
right? And
It's
that's like,
like,
yeah. And I see women, there are so many women in the open division who are masters competitors. That should say so much, like if you are entering and you might have like you might actually enter a master's division, like one, you don't even have to, you can stay in open. And two, like also know that other women in open are also qualified from the standpoint of age as
yeah,
masters as well.
of course, they just don't mention it, right?
Right. No, exactly. Okay. Controversial. I'm gonna ask you this. Um, we hear a lot of the doubts or cons about competing as a master's athlete.
Yes. Which
You've
is why,
highlighted.
which
Oh,
is
go
why I
ahead.
think people hide their age, right?
Yep.
Let's face it. I understand it to a certain point. We live in a world where everything favors youth. Let's
Hmm.
be honest,
Yeah.
right? Um, so if you have somebody who's 25 and the person who's 42 and they're close, will that 25-year-old beat out the 42-year-old? Yeah, more than likely. If
Hmm.
their physiques are comparable. I feel like it has happened many times, right? It's just the nature of the beast, though. This is a very biased sport. And we all are in search of that holy grail that's going to keep us young, aren't we?
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword because everybody wants to stay looking young and everybody wants to be young forever, but time doesn't discriminate against anyone. It comes for us all. So you're gonna age at
Yeah.
some point. But I do feel like some women feel like being in the masters category labels them. I went through that. I
Hmm.
honestly did when I started competing and I won because remember I won my pro cards as masters.
Right.
I had that discussion with my former coach saying, I think when I step on stage, sometimes I don't do as well as I should because they see me as just a masters athlete. And I'll credit Sandy Williams for being the person that said to me, nope. She goes, and even if you entered the open and didn't enter the masters, she goes, you don't think we know? We have your bios. We know who you guys are. So we know your ages. You know what I mean? And that made me feel encouraged to enter the open
Mhm.
category more. But I do feel like there is still a stigma of why a
Yeah,
lot of masters athletes don't go ahead and enter the open
it's true.
or vice versa. If they know that they're on that edge where they look like they're in the open and can continue in the open, they won't go over to competing in masters because they don't want that stigma to follow them. Honest to God, the only people that can change that rhetoric are the judges.
Hmm.
By truly, truly judging and showing we don't care what your age is. If you're in the open and you look good, you get it. You know what I mean?
Right.
We can talk about it till the cows come home. It's really not on the competitors, it's really on the judges at this point.
And that's true for so many things, even down to upholding criteria and standards. Like, now, granted, if all the athletes bring in a super lean look or a super full look, that will sway who the judges can pick. But similarly, like with masters, I will say I've had people I know in the sport who have shared similar experience as you, like where they stepped off stage as a masters competitor and then they went on stage and open and they felt overlooked potentially. Now granted, I've also heard that feedback that you shared from Sandy Williamson that, hey, sometimes like you think that, but that's not what's really happening. And she has also detailed that there is sometimes a pretty distinct difference between what a master's skin and body and muscle density, maturity can look like next to an open competitor who's younger. And it's not about age, but more so like most of these girls look this way, this one looks this way. It's just slightly different and not in a way that better matches the criteria. And so there is that fine line. But like you said, it really comes down to the judges. Now, I think there's got to be some advantages of being a master's competitor that someone like me who's 27, natural, even though I've been working out and an athlete my whole life, like I see the Masters. I was watching the Arnold Amateur this morning and I was seeing the Masters women and I was like, wow, like they're so like their density is beautiful, the
So there
shape.
is, so there is that, right? So it's funny because
Mhm.
the one of the things that I don't want to say addicted to, but Tyler puts out, do you remember when Tyler was doing the videos about the criteria?
Oh, yeah, I
It
love
was,
those.
I eat that up so much. I love that. I wish he would do more feedback like that, or even the other judges, because from speaking to Sandy and her opening my eyes to realize, yeah, they do know my age. They do know, they have my bio. So
Right.
whether I hide or not, they know exactly on stage who's a master's athlete. But like Sandy said, it's about who shows up, right? So master's athletes can get away with looking a little bit harder,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's something some of us can't help. We can get away with a little bit more density, but you have to judge based on the criteria, like Tyler always says. So if you have a lot of girls come in the open that are not as dense, they're not as conditioned as some of us, end up being as masters athletes. We get a lot drier quicker. Um, you have to judge based on who shows up that day and what closely matches the criteria. And bikini is about being softer, the silhouette, more feminine. You know what I mean? So, yeah, if everybody shows up and they're all younger and they kind of sway more towards the criteria, does that master's athlete kind of get pushed more to the side? Doesn't mean she doesn't fit the criteria. There's just
Right.
other people who fit it better that day.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So that's why I said it's kind of up to the judges as well too. But yeah, masters athletes can get away with a little bit more density, that muscle maturity
Mm-hmm.
that, and I don't know what I would have looked like at 20 something in the sport.
Right.
You know, I came in this sport having had done so many other things prior to this. So I came in with a certain amount of
Yeah.
muscle density and muscle maturity. And that's my fine line right now. I can do nothing and I show up looking hard. And it's
Yeah.
like we're working on that, softening me a little bit, you know.
Well, that was also really surprising too, because you had consistently been receiving feedback to have fuller glutes, but at the same time also be tighter, but then also that you were very like muscularly mature. How does someone even navigate that?
Oh my gosh. It's really a mind game, right?
Yeah.
Because literally it's so funny. I remember going to the show that I did before Miami, which was a clash, and they said I got you were a little bit too full. Okay. So a little less full. Okay, so for Miami, then we came in a little flatter, and then the judges were like, we were hoping for that fullness. And it was like, oh my God.
Dang.
So it's really dependent on who you're going to be in front of,
Mhm.
bringing your best physique, but then trying to balance, okay, I want to come in tight, but not too conditioned, and unfortunately last year, a lot of times that I competed, I had my cycle. So I
Yeah.
was stepping on stage a little bit, not as conditioned in my core as I normally would be. And that's Mother Nature, right? You can't, well, I mean, I could manipulate that, but that's just not my jam. I wouldn't.
Mhm.
So you just kind of go with the
Literally.
flow, and it is what it is. But yeah, it can be very hard to navigate because what one judge thinks you need more of, another might say, no, you're perfect, don't touch it.
Yeah,
And that's
true.
where I'm this off season, growing glutes, but more for dimension than anything else.
Mm.
It's been weird.
So true. Yeah, like I sometimes will look at my physique and I'm like, everything does need to grow. But because I keep getting feedback that my lower body's too big compared to my upper body, I have to put the energy into the upper just to meet the criteria more. That's where you know how you were saying you had a bit of a shift when Sandy had given you some feedback. I had a shift when I got feedback from Joe like that, where I was like, oh, like they really, really care more about the overall balance than they do
Yes.
the conditioning, the muscle mass, it's the shape, it's the
The balance and
balance.
the shape. If you
Yeah.
listen to Sandy, it's the balance and the shape. And I know we were all on that, Wagon Wednesday train, right? Let's just
Mm-hmm.
Bikini's one from behind. Bikini's one from behind. But if you really take a look at the judging,
Right.
the balance, go back and look at Olympia.
Exactly.
It's not overly developed top or overly developed bottom. It's who brought the best balance. And that's tricky because like my upper body snaps into shape like this.
Exactly.
My lower body takes a little bit longer to respond. So it's
Mhm.
cutting back my upper body days to like once a week. I'm doing shoulders
Mhm.
once a week because that's my dominant body part.
Mhm.
Doing glutes twice because I need more recovery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's trying to keep everything in balance. Bikini's not tough. I know a lot of times we get, pushed to the side. It's like, you could jog and compete in bikini. No,
You could. You're not gonna make it very far.
we actually do work, to keep and maintain
Yes.
physique. It's not just to go jogging on the beach every morning and show up on stage. So
Right. It's not a swimsuit competition, that's for sure. If you're looking for competition heels, jewelry, and fun competitor extras, then visit shoefairyofficial.com and use code CELESTE for a discount at checkout.
yeah.
Which actually, today at the gym, this person who I just met recently at the gym, I was wearing my Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast sweatshirt and they asked me about it. And I told them that I have this podcast interviewing IFBB bikini pros. And of course, them being men were like, oh, you'll have to, and I'm like, nah, no. And then, today I saw one of them and he goes, oh, how are the swimsuit models going? I said, you mean athletes? And he was like, yes, I know they're great athletes. I'm like, mm-hmm. Like for me, I'm like, I'm gonna just make it so clear you will never
It's
minimize.
It's so funny because when I'm at the gym, and usually I'm at Elevation Gym here in Miami, but you can hear me when I'm working out. If James is training me, if I'm training myself, you don't hear me. And I've had a lot of people come over and then they're like, who may not know me,
Right.
most people know me already, so they know I'm bikini, but somebody who doesn't know me and they're like, do you compete? And I'm like, yes. Figure? No. Wellness? No. I know you don't do women's physique. I mean, you're not there yet. And I'm like, I'm bikini. And they're like, why are you doing such heavy weight if you're
Oh,
bikini? Because we do actually lift weight. You know what I mean?
exactly.
It's
Don't get me
like, I either
started.
get that or the other person who might know that I'm bikini, they just finished their set and then they're moving the pin up to like 12. And I'm looking at them like, really, dude? Really?
Yeah,
It's just this misconception that bikini girls don't need to do a lot of work. And I know that comes from people who've seen
right.
certain shows where they think the girls were not really conditioned or you know what
Right.
I mean? But the reality is that might be a one-off. For the most part, conditioning does matter to a
Mhm.
degree, and we do come in conditioned. We do lift weights in the gym.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, there's this misconception or being written off, although I think hopefully that's evolving and changing a lot. I mean, from back in 2013, it's changed so much. 2015, it's changed. It's just continued to evolve. And I think we can't, I mean, obviously, we both are recognizing bikini's the smallest division of all the
Yeah.
divisions. We're not saying it's not, but also like that takes work. Like when you look at the standard, it is a high standard. So we have to represent, I think, and make it very clear and stand up for that division too, because it is a hardworking division. And I think at least we've gotten better at not having to hear people always say, "Oh, her makeup's nice" or "her suit color is perfect." It's like she's training hard. And also, let's go back to that point you made too. It's not just a competition that's won from the back. This was like something that was said over and over again. I would say probably from like 2016 to like 2021. It was constantly like, oh, if you have nice glutes, you're gonna win. But then like we really saw like actually that result, like you said, that's not what happens. Maybe at a local level, regional
Right.
level, maybe at a national level, like that conditioning just maybe it changes the game. But at the highest levels, you actually really don't see them doing that. And I think, you mentioned it's quite difficult to uphold or maybe work towards the feedback that you've gotten because it is that fine line between the density and the conditioning and the fullness. So I know you said you don't have goals right now or a stage date in mind, but with the next Masters Bikini Olympia probably not happening until 2025, is that something you intend to go back to?
Yes.
Yes. Immediately, yes.
Yes. I mean, listen, I'm not going to be shy about saying I'm a competitive person.
Yeah.
I do want that title. I'm going to be working towards it. And we'll see where the cards fall, you know. I've been encouraging a lot of masters athletes to get into the sport and use that, like people come to me and they're like, well, what about the Olympia? Well, why obsess? I don't want to do it because I would never make it to the Olympia. Why obsess over that?
Yeah. That's like saying
Why
you don't want
obsess
to.
over that? More and more promoters are adding masters categories to their shows. Let's embrace that because that's them showing we recognize this is the legacy of the sport, like I've said before, right? We recognize that people aren't going to stay, Chris Bumstead ain't going to stay young forever. All these people, Maureen Blanquisco, everybody at some point is going to get older. But this opens up an avenue for us to still revere and follow and enjoy these people should they stay in the sport that long, right? Should they continue in this, but this is an avenue for that. So I have a lot of sometimes masters athletes come to me and they say, well, I want to do a show, and I would love to go far in this sport, but I don't know because I won't make it to Olympia. There's Masters Olympia. You can shoot for that, right?
Right.
So like if you want to pigeonhole yourself into one thing, that's one thing. But I mean, the sky's the limit in this sport, right? You can go in the open, you can go for masters. Master Olympia is something that's attainable for masters if you want to go there. I love that it's coming back in 2025. Do I wish it was here this year? Absolutely. But
Yeah. I know.
I
Is
love
it?
that it's back.
Yeah.
I've had people write me, guys, oh my gosh, I have a follower who had left this sport disillusioned, very disillusioned with the sport more than 15 years ago, 20 years ago, probably even more than that. And happened upon my page, started following me, and after Masters Olympia, really decided he was going to compete again, competed and won.
That's
Hasn't
awesome.
competed in decades. And
Wow.
wrote me and said, it's because of you and how much you are just so driven and you're outspoken about masters in the sport. And
I love
I love
that.
being an ambassador for masters.
Yes.
There's nothing more empowering than you defying society, that you are not past your prime, that you can still be in it to win it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nothing more empowering than that, like setting
Yeah.
that goal.
I love seeing men and women do that. Like go against the status quo, break the standards, show themselves what they're capable of. And it shows younger people too that, hey, like your life is not over at 35. You're gonna have a lot more to look forward to. It only gets better from here. Don't give up on your dreams just because you just turned XYZ age. And like,
It's so funny because my daughters are of course they're into it. Their mom's in the sport, right? My middle daughter wants to be the first redheaded Miss Olympia. I had to like
oh,
break her hopes the other day because I found out C-Bum's wife was an Olympian. She's naturally redheaded. So my daughter said, well, I'll be the first curly haired redhead. But
oh,
they follow the sport. And how neat would it be for younger people? I mean, they've met Laura Chapalos, they've met Ashlyn, for them to be able to grow up and still keep following these people. Oh, I remember watching them when my mom used to compete, and now they're competing, but those people are now in masters compete. I mean, to me, there's no negatives about Masters Olympia being back and more masters being in this sport. It just helps the sport have longevity. And how awesome was it that our president at 80 was
I
flexing? Come
know.
on. Come
He's
on.
such a
That's so
genuine guy
amazing, man.
too.
It's
Yeah.
like longevity in this sport. We're already a niche, a family of empowering, supportive people. Let's just make it something that lives forever. You know,
Oh, my guess.
I love it.
Golly, I love that. I'm fired up. I'm like, I can be in this sport for 40 years.
Yes.
On top of what I've already done.
Right? Listen, I tell myself that all the time. People are like, when are you going to stop? Never. Well, my bones
Literally.
might tell me when to stop. Never.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
spirit's not telling me anything, you know? It's like,
That's how I see it too. I'm like,
spirit's going to
I've
go
been in it.
forever.
Yeah. And when you make it a lifestyle too, it's like, hey, this is
That's the
great.
thing. I mean, I know people hop in and out of the sport,
Right.
that's why I say it has to be like it's based on your why. For some people, it's a bucket list item. I get that. But there are diehard true fans of us, right? Like
Mhm.
we are in this and we love being in it, and we don't have a timetable as to when we'll stop.
Right.
You and for some people, it's like, oh, I just wanted to do it for 2-3 years and then out. And that's cool too, you
Yes.
know. But just having it around for a long time is what I hope, you know. There's
Same.
so many great benefits. Listen, everything in life has a seedy side.
Mm.
Everything. And bodybuilding's no different, but
Mm.
you have a choice as to what side of the aisle you want to be and what you go out there looking for out of it. Right? If you go
True.
looking for the negative, you'll
Right.
find it.
That's
If
exactly
you go
right.
gravitating towards the positive, you will find it.
That's
So,
exactly right. You know what? On that note, that's probably some of your best advice, but I'm going to ask for your best advice anyway. So, what is your best advice for someone who's never competed before but wants to? And then your best advice for somebody who's on their road to pro?
best advice for somebody who's never competed but wants to figure out your why, align yourself with good people, do your research. Because a coach puts something in your hands and tells you to take it doesn't mean you take it, right? So do your own research. Um, always go in search of answers. Question everything. Question everybody, right?
Mhm.
But know your why as to why you're starting, because that's going to hold you in place on the days that it gets tough. And there are going to be tough days. There are going to be tough days, right?
Yep.
And then for somebody who's on their road to pro,
Got it.
oh man, my advice to somebody who's on their road to pro, enjoy every moment.
Mhm.
Slow down and enjoy the journey. This is where you're getting built. And when you
Mm.
get that pro card on that stage, close your eyes and savor it. That's something I wish I had done. Close your eyes and savor it. This is where you're being built. This is where your character comes out. This is where who you are is being made and tested. Not just being made, but you're continually being tested. How bad do you want this? And then when you get it, what's your next step?
Mm.
Yeah, just savor the moment. I think too many people are in search of that pro card and they're not realizing that the journey is where the champion's made. The journey is where you're being tested over and over and the grit comes out.
Mhm.
How do you handle that grit? Do you become a negative person? Are you nice to prep around? Are you not? Can you see the good side of things? Can you see the positive side of things? When you're under pressure and searching for that pro card, are you tearing people around you down because you want it more than them? You think you
Mm.
deserve it? Or are you still able to lift others up, help them too, knowing that that might be who gets the pro card on the day and not you?
Right.
You know what I
That's right.
mean? I think so much of who people are comes out in this journey. So much.
For the better or the worse.
Yeah, just stay authentic. Stay authentic. What's for you will never pass you by. Understand that.
Yes. Sometimes what you think is for you is not for you, also.
Exactly. What's for you is not going to pass you by. It's not going to
Mm.
pass you by, I promise you. God has a plan for you. It might not work out how you think, but trust, unless you think you could create a world in like 7 days or something, trust that the plan that he has set aside for you is greater and better than the plan that you have conceived for yourself.
Yes. That was such great advice. And I'm telling you right now, like my life changed a lot in the last like month, let alone a few months. And last month, I was like, God, I'm giving this to you. I'm going to stop trying to change it, control it, be so close to it. I keep getting burned type of things. I know I can't. So here, you take it. And man, as soon as I did that, it was like he was like, finally, and like so much goodness just began overflowing again in my life. And not that it wasn't there before, there was still goodness, but I was holding on so tight to my plan that once I was like, that's not why I'm here anymore. And you put me in this position for a reason. So I know you'll provide for me. And he did, and he does every time. And I'm like, oh, why do I keep trying to hold on when you're
It's
so good?
human nature, especially I think when you're in this sport, we get to manipulate so many things around us,
Yes,
right? We get to
exactly.
control, we get to have
Mhm.
control that it then becomes sometimes hard for you to relinquish that to something unseen, unheard, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's funny that you said that. Yesterday, I needed to come across a quote on somebody's page, and I did, which was sometimes you need to thank him for being in the difficult places in which you are. Because sometimes we're so worried when we're in that difficult place. Well, why am I here? Or why am I? Well, just take me out of here. Just take me out of here. Rather than turning around and being like, you know what? Thank you for putting me in this difficult place because my strength needed to be tested right now. My patience
Exactly.
needed to be tested right now. I needed to be in the muck to realize that I needed to rise up out of it. Right? Sometimes
Mm.
you just got to say thank you, even for the negative, which is hard. I ain't
So
gonna.
hard. But then you make a habit of it and it becomes a little
Yeah.
easier. I'm
Yeah.
starting to realize like he didn't make my life hard, but he made the hard parts of my life better. And that frees me from a lot of the angst that I get over it. And I like how you said, like, instead of praying to be removed from it, like, thank him for putting you there and see, like, what is the purpose. So, and have him reveal it.
What that's that saying, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor.
Oof, yeah.
So I try to remind myself when adversity comes, it's because I'm about to grow. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean it's always palatable. Doesn't mean it's always fun. But I try to remember I'm going through this rough patch
Mm-hmm.
because I need to grow. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, that acceptance of it.
Yeah.
Well, Janine, thank you for all of this amazingness in this conversation. I loved every minute, and I'm sure the listeners did too. And I'm sure they want to know how they can follow you, connect with you, and watch your journey even more, even work with you. So, how can they do that?
Thank you for having me, first off.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to follow me, I'm at JA9Fit on Instagram. That's J is in apple, 9 is in the number 9, fit altogether. Or they can reach out to me at Janine, JANINE, at teamalphaesthetics.com.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes page too. So you guys, you won't only find her links and how to contact her, but you're also going to see a full breakdown of this episode in summary format, as well as a bulleted list of the topics we covered and all the episode timestamps. So you can go back, listen to your favorite parts, share it with your friends, family, teammates, and let them know what you thought about it. Of course, tag us on Instagram or Facebook as you listen. It's always so nice to hear your guys' feedback, see what you guys think about it. I know it means a lot to me, but it means even more to the athletes who come on to share so openly and provide such great, valuable content and feedback for us. So thank you guys in advance for doing that. And of course, for listening every Friday with us. Yeah, it was so awesome to have you, Janine. And I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.
Thank you so much.